What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel. Today's going to be going over all of the Season 4 patch notes. Right after I get done with this video, I'm going to directly jump into getting all the weapon changes up on TGD, so you guys can go check them out. But there's a ton of stuff to cover here, so I'm not going to waste any time. Let's jump into it, and we'll cover the Season 4 patch notes. I'm not going to cover every single thing in these patch notes. I'm just going to cover basically the highlights that I think are really important to know. So we're going to start with perks. They've added Ghost, Combat Scout, Double Time, Cold Blooded, and Amped all to the ground loot perks pool. So these will now spawn out of boxes, but they are the rarest drop rate of any of them, which makes sense because those are very, very powerful perks. I'm not so sure about having like Ghost in the pool of ground loot perks, but it'll probably be okay if they're pretty rare. And then perk adjustments, we've got Battle Hardened. Stun and Flash Resistance finally is increased. We've been wanting this for a long, long time. Now it's 70% up from 40%, so I expect Battle Hardened to be a very competitive pick now, especially with the number of snapshots and stuns and how strong Restock is now. Scavenger awards an additional $500 in the Scavenger pouch for each kill, so you get extra money each time you kill someone. That's kind of interesting. Hardline provides 25% discount, including loadout drop markers. I don't remember if it did that before or not. I don't think it did. I think that's why this is a change. Previous adjustments, these were done in Season 3, but apparently they didn't list them in the patch notes. The Restock perk now takes 30 seconds to recharge your tactical and your lethal rather than 25 seconds, so that's a good change. And this is not a perk, so I'm not sure why that's listed there. A small but important change, the tactical snapshot grenade was updated from having a radius of 27.5 meters down to 22 meters, so that's like a 1/5 reduction, so that's pretty good, like 20% reduction in the radius with which it will hit someone. We've got two new weapons. We got the UGM 8 LMG and the Marco 5 SMG, and directly after this video I'll go get all the stats for that. I'll be live streaming on Twitch right after this video to start up a private match and get all the numbers tested for both those guns and all their attachments. And I'll also be updating the website to have all of the weapon adjustments that we're about to go over. All right, time for the weapon adjustments. So there's a ton of these. I'm gonna go through them as quickly as possible, and it's hard for me to know immediately how it's gonna affect stuff. Sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes it's not. So I'll do my best to kind of interpret these for you guys and let you know how these things are gonna change. So the Black Ops Cold War AK-47, the sustained recoil has been slightly increased. It had already been nerfed into the ground, so not really nerfed to the ground, but nerfed to the point where it wasn't really worth using. So that's not really going to affect much because nobody was really using it anyway. AS44 increased standing hipfire accuracy. I mean, you're never hip firing while you're standing still, so this isn't really a stat that matters that much. All the hip fires on TrueTechData are me tested when I'm strafing left and right repeatedly, so I get the realistic hip fire spread. Also, on that note, the premium features that I talked about in my last video a couple days ago, unfortunately didn't quite get them out for this update, but they're basically done. It should be within the next couple days. We'll launch all 3 of those new features, so I'm super excited for that. That's going to be amazing. Animated aim sway, animated hip fire, and the best stat lookup tool for any stat in the game, pretty much. So anyway, back to this. The Empress barrel had its horizontal recoil control increased. It used to be minus 30%, now it's only minus 25%, so it's still worse, but it's just not quite as bad. The Kovalevskaya 615 millimeter barrel, this was the long range barrel. Vertical recoil control is now increased by 12%, so it's going to be a little bit better at range. The 40 round mag, this was the basically high caliber mag for the AS44. Slightly better recoil than it used to have. No more damage bonus. Damage range increased by slightly more, and muzzle velocity increased by quite a bit more. So that's interesting to me. I don't really know why they would remove the damage bonus of the high caliber mag that makes the recoil much worse, so I think there's no chance anyone's going to use this. The 7.62 Gorenko mag, this is the opposite. So this was the low caliber mag of the AS44. Muzzle velocity penalty is only 15% now instead of 20%, so you get slightly better bullet velocity. It doesn't hurt your damage anymore, and the damage range is decreased now a little bit more than it used to be. From used to be minus 20%, now it's minus 30%. So this is gonna be a pretty good mag now. But the recoil is still not going to be very good. It's never gotten to the point where it's been usable. It'll be worth a shot to try it out, but even with this extra 12% from the long range barrel, I don't think it's going to be a meta weapon in any sense. All right, so the bar changes. You guys know I love the bar. I got my PR of 38 with the bar with 40 round mag. So let's go through the changes to the bar in this patch. Get slightly more muzzle velocities. That's surprising. They actually upped the neck damage multiplier, so those are both buffs. The 30-inch barrel was really, really good, really strong. They made the recoil a little bit worse, so it used to be 35% help, now it's only 28% help, and they increased the visual recoil. Visual recoil is huge. It's something people don't think about very much. I'm still working on quantifying visual recoil using some screen tracking technology that I wrote in Python, and it works really well actually, but it just takes an enormous amount of time to go through and test all the different attachments and see how they affect it. So I'm still working on that. I'm not sure when I'll get that out, but the Chariot Rapid barrel, this says that the recoil was decreased with no numbers given, recentering speed increased by 3%, and visual recoil decreased. So no numbers are given here. No idea what that means. I had to check that out in game. 50 BMG mags. Muzzle velocity was decreased from 20% down to 12%, so not quite as fast bullet velocity anymore. And then for the 60 round mag specifically, it says the damage range was increased to 25%, up from 20%. So I don't know if these changes were like separate from the 40 round mags or what. That's really strange that they're not listed for both of these. 8mm Clouser rounds. So the muzzle velocity was increased. Used to be minus 20%, now it's only minus 15%. Damage range was increased by the same amount. And the fire rate is 2% slower. So I actually think recoil control decreased to only 16%, down from 20%. But I feel like the recoil was so low on this already that I feel like a 5% increase in bullet velocity is actually a buff. I know you have 2% worse time to kill, but for me, for a long range gun, I'll take bullet velocity over time to kill in a lot of situations. Not all situations, obviously it depends. But I just feel like I'd probably take a 5% increase to bullet velocity over a 2% better time to kill for a long range gun. So I think it's kind of a buff, along with these two things being a buff. So just interesting. Remove stock vertical recoil control decreased to minus 12%, down from minus 10%. So vertical recoil control decreased. So it used to hurt your vertical recoil by 10%, now it hurts by 12%. Okay, so for the Cooper Carbine, the recoil intensity was adjusted to account for less reliance on tight grip. So basically they're trying to make it so you don't have to use tight grip in that perk 1 slot for the Cooper Carbine to make it viable. They also increased the max damage and increased the min damage by 1. So the first damage range, it damages up by 1. And then obviously that's multiplied out, so that can be more than 1 on like headshots and neck shots and things like that. Min damage increased by 2 at long range. So the Cooper is going to be extremely, extremely good now. Like, this is kind of scary to me because the Cooper is ridiculously easy to use. And having it be like a viable weapon in terms of time to kill, I think it's going to be a really, really popular pick. It does have low bullet velocity, but just the ease of use is going to make up for that. It has great ADS times, great movement, and now it's going to have a good time to kill and basically no recoil. So this is going to be a very, very good weapon. Now we'll have to see how they change the other ones, but I think that could push it into the meta. Gracie Rapid headshot multiplier increased to 1.12, up from 1.071. So you get a little bit more headshot damage with the Gracie Rapid barrel. Upper torso damage penalty removed, so it no longer penalizes you on the upper torso. Horizontal recoil and vertical recoil penalties are decreased, so you get better recoil than you used to have. So that's just a straight up big old buff for the Gracie Rapid barrel. That's probably not the barrel you're going to be using for long range anyway. Tight grip has been reduced, like the amount of recoil it removes has been reduced, so it's been a slight nerf. Compressed rounds also got a slight nerf, increases recoil now on both vertical and horizontal. So the Itra burst, they've been buffing the Itra burst over and over and over, trying to make it viable, and it's just really tough to make a burst gun viable. And it's really hard to balance that with making it overpowered, as we saw with the M16 and the AUG meta back in the Black Ops Cold War days in Verdansk. Those guns basically went from being overpowered to used by no one, just with some slight changes. So it's really, really hard for them to balance this. But they buffed it again in this patch, so muzzle velocity is up by 11%. And then the upper torso damage multiplier is up to 1.2, up from 1.1. So a little bit of a buff there. It's a fun gun to use, but I just haven't really found a way to make it competitive against these other like no recoil, just hold the trigger down guns. But we'll try it again, see if it fits in anywhere. The Nikita, they've been trying to make this like a really good sniper support for a long time. And in this patch, they buffed the max damage. This is the first damage range, up to 26, up from 23. So this could make it pretty nasty in that first damage range. They also increased the movement speed, so we'll test that out and get that updated on TGD as well. And then they also removed the movement speed modifiers from the 50 round mag and 60 round mag. Again, they're trying to make it a viable sniper support. So most of the really good snipers that I know prefer to use an SMG for the mobility and the up close fight potential of SMGs. So that's basically what you can see they're trying to do here. So trying to make it have better movement speed, trying to make it kill faster in the first range, and just trying to make it a viable sniper support. So we'll see how that fits in. All right, the KG M40. So the M40 was released probably like 3 months ago now. It's always had really bad time to kill, and it got even worse when we went to 300 health. But it has no recoil whatsoever. So looking at this, KG M40 min damage, this is the last damage range where you're going to be using it for long range engagements. Got a 2 damage buff, which will probably be up to like 4 damage, 3 or 4 damage on headshots and neck shots, things like that. This is going to be big because this gun's always had literally no recoil, just the easiest to control gun in the game pretty much. And giving it a better time to kill is kind of scary. This could be much like that Cooper Carbine buff. This is going to fit in very, very much with like what we just experienced with the STG and the NZ41. Both of those had basically no recoil. You could get beamed from 150 meters, 200 meters with no recoil whatsoever. And that's what this KG M40 is probably going to feel like now. We'll just see how this affects the TTK. Obviously, it's going to be at least 1 less shot to kill, and it doesn't shoot that fast. So I think it's probably going to have competitive numbers now. It also says recoil intensity adjusted. So this means the recoil was reduced because there's less reliance on tight grip, which means that the regular recoil has to be better. So that's another buff. So the 6.5 Sakura 40 round mag, better muzzle velocity, better damage range. They're just really buffing this gun across the board. The 500 millimeter barrel, muzzle velocity is better, vertical recoil control is better. It used to have 90% more vertical recoil. That's crazy. Now it only has 50%. The Krasnik 700 millimeter barrel damage range increased up to 25%. Burst barrel, nobody's gonna probably use this, so I mean these changes don't matter that much. But damage range, muzzle velocity both buffed. Rate of fire buffed. Burst cooldown decreased. So burst cooldown, I'm assuming that's the time between bursts. So that is actually quite a big buff there to the burst barrel. That's interesting. I might check that out. The rapid barrel used to have pretty crazy increased fire rate on this gun, so now only does 18%. Global damage decreased to -7%, down from -5%, so it does less damage than it used to do as well. The Restore 36 SK hipfire accuracy increased to -10%, up from -12.4%. So your hipfire is a little bit worse. Hipfire accuracy is less negative. So yeah, it's worse. Tight grip obviously got that little bit of a nerf across the board. All right, so for some reason they also buffed the FFAR from Black Ops Cold War. Obviously this used to be like the meta gun with those strafe speeds and insane time to kills back in Verdansk, but it's been a long time since then, so I don't know why they buffed this. That just seems kind of random to me. But anyway, on to the NZ41. This was a gun that got a really big buff, a big part because of my tweet about it, directly interacting with one of the lead weapon developer from Raven. But the brace perk made the NZ have literally no recoil for like the first 5 shots. So you could literally down someone at like 200 to 250 meters if they weren't moving or if they were mounted before they could even react. Because all you had to do is just, account for the bullet drop. But like the first 5 or 6 shots, literally you could put all on someone's head if they weren't moving. So I got tons of downs doing that to people. Just crazy. It became a very, very highly picked meta weapon after the update recently. So let's check out how they changed it in this patch. So the burst barrel, this was the meta barrel purely because the orb weaver barrel never actually caught that velocity buff that they said was in the patch last time. But the initial firing and recoil control was increased. So that means that you have better recoil on your initial shots with the burst barrel, but the sustained firing and recoil control was decreased. So it used to be 10% better. Now it's -12%. So that's a really, really big nerf there. This is actually supposed to be red, not green. They made it better on burst, so it has a faster burst fire, less of a burst delay. Burst fire now supports auto burst mode. Oh, that's cool. I don't think we've ever had that before. You can just hold down the trigger and it'll keep firing in bursts. It has a better burst rate now, so that's pretty cool. That's interesting. And then they finally did fix the Orb Weaver barrel. So this is the 360 millimeter barrel. You now get 40% bullet velocity from that, and it used to have better recoil control, which means it probably still has better recoil control than the burst barrel. So unless I am mistaken, I don't see anything on here that's a nerf, really. I guess we haven't read all of it yet, but this is going to be a buff. Like, this barrel was supposed to be better than the burst barrel. It just never actually got updated to the patch notes. So you're going to have more bullet velocity with the Orb Weaver barrel and less recoil than we had before, which is a very scary thought. The Orb Weaver custom visual recoil is decreased, horizontal recoil control increased, so you don't have quite as much of a penalty with this barrel anymore. And then the Ravenwood 480 millimeter ADS initial recoil control increased, so it has better recoil initially in your ADS. They have separate hipfire recoil. Interesting. Learn something new every day. Separate hipfire control multiplier that is also 10% better. So this is the meta magazine here, the 6.5 millimeter Sakura 50 round mag. Vertical recoil control decreased to 40%, down from 45%, so 5% change. And then more visual recoil. So that could actually be a big change. Visual recoil is very, very important. We'll have to see what that means. But overall, reading the patch notes, it looks like the NZ just got buffed when it was already insane before. So we'll have to check this out and see if there's some changes that weren't listed here. I really expected a nerf to damage or a nerf to recoil or something, but I mean, this 5% is going to be overtaken by the Orb Weaver's better recoil control than the burst barrel. So really interesting. It looks like a buff to the NZ. So for the STG, they did finally nerf the STG. We got min damage decreased to 28 down from 29. That's only 1 damage difference. So we'll see how that actually affects the time to kill, but that's a very small change. Muzzle velocity decreased by 1.8%, another very small change. This is good. So headshot multiplier was decreased from 1.58 to 1.45. This means that it used to only take 1 headshot to reduce that time to kill. And I expect that this means it'll take at least 2, maybe 3 headshots to reduce your time to kill from hitting body shots. And then neck damage multiplier was also decreased ever so slightly. So I think, again, that probably has something to do with the way those numbers work out. So that's a really good change. The 7.62 Gorenko 50 round mag, slightly more recoil than it used to have, The 760 millimeter barrel, this was the meta barrel. Muzzle velocity was decreased by 5%, damage range decreased by 3%, visual recoil increased. So it sounds like the STG is going to have a little bit more recoil with the 50 round mag, and 1 extra headshot to kill, which will be really nice. This is a pretty good nerf to the STG. I think this will kind of shift it out of the meta. I think the KG-M40, the Cooper Carbine, and the NZ so far are looking like very spicy meatballs. So we will see. We'll see how this works out in game. But so far, that's what I'm thinking. The Vargo 52. So the Vargo 52 muzzle velocity increased by almost 4%. Raise time decreased to 765 milliseconds. And then the barrel recoil controls were decreased slightly. So the Vargo's always been very good. Has great numbers, good recoil, good visual recoil. So this will be interesting to see how this fits in. Now this might bring it back closer to the meta. Probably not going to be meta compared to like a Cooper or a KG-M40 or the NZ was the meta before, and it looks like it got a big buff to me. So we'll see. Unless there's something hidden that changed about the NZ is going to be the absolute meta so far. Like I don't have any problem saying that. So the Volkswagen, the visual recoil was decreased. Only changed to the Volkswagen, and they made a ton of changes to the launchers. I'm not going to go over those. Basically, they made them have more damage. They never adjusted these for the 300 health, so now they've adjusted them to do more damage in line with people having, an extra 50 health. Onto the LMGs, the Whitley. So the max damage range was increased up to 40 meters from 38, so it's like 2 extra meters of damage range. Max damage increased to 39, up from 38, so you do more damage in the first damage range, and also 1 more damage in the second damage range. That's going to be nice for long range. It was already pretty good. I never really ended up trying it out or using it just because the other meta weapons felt so oppressive that I didn't feel like I needed to. But this could bring it pretty close to the meta. The Gracie Mark 9 barrel damage range now increased by 15%. All 3 of the other LMGs from Vanguard got a nice muzzle velocity buff. So the DP27 is up by almost 10%. That's a big buff in terms of bullet velocity. Bran is up by 2.4 and Type 11 is up by 1.8. MG42. So the MG42 has always been decent, but it's just had too much recoil to really be used. Even if you built it for full recoil, it just wasn't ever going to compete with something like an STG at range just because there was too much recoil. So they've reduced the recoil again for less reliance on tight grip, they keep saying. Max damage increased to 22 up from 20, so that's a buff in the first damage range, a significant buff. Min damage increased to 19 up from 17. Again, that's a significant buff. That's like a 20% damage buff, or 10% damage buff, which is pretty significant. ADS transition in time increased to 410 milliseconds up from 360 milliseconds, so it has slower ADS time now. Muzzle velocity increased by 2%, another nice buff. 890 millimeter barrel, damage range increased by 15%, 6.5 millimeter Sakura, 125 round drum, better damage range, better bullet velocity, better ADS speed. ADS speed increased. Yes, that's better. Yes, that's better. It seems like it should be worse, but it's better, I think. Tight grip again caught that same nerf across the board for all weapons. Marksman rifles. Flinch has been decreased on marksman rifles by 25%. Nice little buff. M1 Garand. Upper torso damage multiplier increased to 1.3 up from 1.1. Neck damage multiplier increased up to 1.3 from 1.1. So the M1 Garand is going to hit like a truck now. So this is interesting. It's still using sniper ammo, so it's still going to be very difficult to use. And I'm scared that that's not going to be possible to balance. It's either going to be too much damage and kills too fast, or it's going to be not usable. So I'm pretty scared about them trying to balance these with assault or with sniper ammo. If they use assault rifle ammo or something like that, I think it could be done because you could balance it out where, you know, it just was a viable weapon. But since you only have like 50 shots with these things, I don't know. It's just a scary thought that they might try to balance these into the meta. But this is going to be pretty crazy. I think the M1 Garand could be pretty good now. Modern Warfare crossbow and the Black Ops Cold War crossbow both got bolt velocity increases. So 27% on the Modern Warfare and 12.5% on the Black Ops Cold War. For pistols, so pistols I pulled off TGD probably like a month ago. They just weren't ready. I didn't have everything for them. I didn't want them to be up and be incorrect. I've been working on that a lot. I've got most of them updated and ready to go. Been working on it behind the scenes, but I don't know when they'll be back up. But anyway, the AMP63 got a nerf. Max damage was actually increased, so the first damage range was increased, but then after that, it was nerfed, and the multipliers were nerfed. So overall, it's just a net nerf across everywhere. The Diamatti also got another nerf. I thought they already did this. I thought I already read this. Decreased to 30 down from 35. I thought this was in the last patch or something. And then the Vanguard Rat, which was already a really good pistol, by the way. This thing fries. The barrel caught a very big buff, up by 3 damage in the first damage range and 2 damage in the second range. The fire rate penalty was also increased. So it used to be minus 50%, now it's only minus 38%. There are so many changes in this patch, it's crazy. But on to the submachine guns. So the Armaguerra 43, max damage increased to 27 up from 25. So it was already pretty much a meta weapon. It snuck up on the edge of meta, and now it's going to have better time to kill in the first damage range. Damage range did get nerfed by 0.7 meters, so a little bit less than 10%. But the increase in damage is going to make it a very, very good SMG, I think. The Bati 315 CII barrel also caught that same 2 damage buff up to 28. The max damage range was decreased again, and the vertical recoil was decreased. So, I mean, this is like no change at all. It's like 1.5%, but yeah, this is going to be a really good gun now, I think. It was already pretty good before. Now it's going to be really good. Perfetto custom barrel damage range increased to 30% up from 25%. Fire rate modifier was decreased, so it doesn't increase your, or doesn't hurt your fire rate. Let me read this slowly. Fire rate modifier decreased to minus 7%, down from minus 13%. So it used to be minus 13% fire rate, now it's only minus 7%. So this is a buff. This should be green. That's what's throwing me off, is when the colors are wrong on Clean Raven software. So I'll link these patch notes because they're really nice, because they color code and it's right like 98% of the time. And then the Emerito barrel, the recoil was increased slightly. So it used to be 25% better recoil, now it's only 20% in the horizontal, and used to be 20% in vertical, now it's only 15% in the vertical. Nice buff there. Russian short 34 round mag. This was the small mag that I believe increased damage. No, it looks like decreased damage. I actually, full disclosure, like never used the Arma. I don't even think I have it unlocked yet. I just felt like there were other things I wanted to use, either the Blixen or the Type 100. I always had something else to use, so I never really felt the need to unlock it, but I know some people love this gun. So for the Russian short ammunition, locational damage penalties have been removed, so this is going to do much more damage now, apparently. Damage range was increased slightly. It used to be minus 20%, now it's only minus 18%. Fire rate modifier used to be, so read this slow again. Fire rate modifier decreased to 8%. Down from 10%. So it used to increase your fire rate by 10%. Now it only increases it by 8%. So this one is a nerf, right? Yes, this one is a nerf. That makes sense. The 72 round Kurz mag damage range or damage bonus decreased to 7%, down from 10%. So it used to help your damage by a little bit more. Fire rate modifier was decreased to 8.5%, down from 15%. So it's gonna fire rate modifier decreased. Used to be minus 15%. Now it's only minus 8.5%. So this is the one that should be green again. So this one should be green. It shoots faster than it used to, basically. Vertical recoil control is worse now. Horizontal recoil control is worse as well. And then the body barrel recoil decreased to 11%, down from 14%. Recoil decreased. I don't know what that means. Can't speak to that. So as most of you know, if you've been playing the game, the Blixen has been an absolutely dominant SMG. So let's see how they address that here. So the mid damage range was decreased by, or mid damage done was decreased by 1. Movement speed was slightly reduced. ADS movement speed slightly reduced. So, I mean, these are like very, very small changes. Not really going to affect it much at all, in my opinion. The Johnson barrel muzzle velocity now increased by 20%. So that's a buff to the Johnson barrel. Carlson was just such a good barrel. The muzzle velocity is now decreased by 10%, and recoil control is slightly worse. I mean, those don't seem like big changes to me. The barrel was just super, super good as it was. The burst barrel got a 30% muzzle velocity buff. The Bergstrom barrel caught a slight nerf, slightly less recoil control. This is the barrel I was thinking of. They're both 17 inches. That's what confused me. This is the last barrel. I was going to say the recoil is insane. The difference of the recoil with the Bergstrom barrel is crazy. So it caught a slight nerf, 7% more recoil, or 7% less on the modifier. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. That's just such a good barrel. The Gorenko 7.62 54 round mag. So this is the headshot mag. The multiplier was decreased from 25% down to 18%. So my guess would be this is going to make it take one more headshot, which is a good change because that is basically the mag everyone settled on. So we'll check out all this stuff out in detail in future videos, but I just want to go over the patch notes for now and give you guys my, general thoughts. All right, some more SMG changes. The MAC-10 from Black Ops Cold War caught a nice little buff. So the min damage in its longest damage range increased damage by 1. Headshot damage multiplier was increased to 1.33. Again, this probably reduces headshots to kill needed off of like chest shots or something by 1. So again, that's a nice little buff. And then the max damage range was increased to 15.6, up from 14.7. So I don't know why they're buffing the MAC-10, but this will put it in a pretty good spot, honestly. It's not going to be very competitive up close in terms of, really good time to kill, but this could be interesting for like maybe, I don't know, maybe sniper support. It'll be interesting to check out. It's just one of those guns that's like so ridiculously like comfortable for people to use and easy to use, that it's really popular. And that's because it has such a fast fire rate. It's super forgiving if you miss any shots, and it has almost no visual recoil and almost no actual recoil. So it's just a really like easy gun to use. So we'll see how this fits in now. The Owen Gun upper torso damage multiplier decreased to 25%, down from 45%. So big old nerf there. And then the Shrouded Barrel max damage range was increased up to 18.4. But the upper torso, lower torso, and lower extremities damage was all decreased by quite a bit. And then vertical recoil control decreased to minus 20%, 26%, down from minus 25%. So yeah, a very, very small change there. The PPSh from Vanguard recoil intensity slightly decreased. And the 8mm Nambu muzzle velocity was increased slightly. It used to be a 20% penalty, now it's a 15% penalty. The Sten, if you guys saw my last video, is like insane in terms of It's ADS strafing firing movement speed. So with this change here, it's going to do more damage in the first range, more damage in the second range, more damage in the third range. The Sten's something to keep an eye on for sure, because you can give it just insane strafe speeds, and it does have a 50 round mag now. So I'm definitely going to check this out. This could be pretty good now. Type 100 lower extremities damage multiplier decreased to 2.95, down from 1. Rapid barrel vertical recoil control now decreased by 2.5%. Fire rate decreased to 18%, down from 20%. So this is an interesting change here. So the vertical recoil control is now penalized by 2.5%, but the fire rate's 2% lower. So if you think about how fire rate interacts with recoil, the faster you're firing, essentially the more recoil something feels like it has. That's why we measure recoil rate on true game data. That's like the recoil per second kind of thing. So this really, in terms of actual recoil, probably won't feel any different at all, because you're shooting 2% slower, but your actual recoil magnitude is increased by 2.5%. So the actual speed at which you have to move your mouse to correct for that recoil, or the amount that you have to hold your stick down in order to correct for that recoil, probably gonna be about the same, because the recoil rate will be really similar. The Welgun lower extremities damage multiplier was nerfed pretty heavily, so Welgun caught a pretty big nerf there. So you guys all know that I used to be a big sniper. I loved the Swiss, pretty much what I use all the time, but I didn't use it like, I didn't sit back and snipe people. Like, I was a very aggressive sniper. I'd get up close to people and play it that way. But I understood it felt terrible to be one shot in any situation. So I know why they tried to mess with this and tried to balance it, but I felt like the flinch was just not the way to do it. I had a bunch of other ideas for how to balance them. So in this patch, it looks like, if the patch notes are correct, I have not played this in game yet, but all the aggressive snipers, so the Kar98, the SPR, the Swiss, Pellington, LW3 is apparently an aggressive sniper. I didn't know that. Type 99 and Kar98 from Vanguard. It says they now have the lowest flinch tier, previously only on the Kar98 Modern Warfare and the Swiss K31. So this sounds like they reverted all the flinch changes back to the old ones, which is pretty crazy to me. Like, we went from having virtually no flinch on the Swiss and the Kar98 to having so much flinch that they were almost unusable if you ever got shot at whatsoever. And now we're going all the way back to when they had no flinch. I just don't understand why there's no middle ground there. I feel like you could find something that would make most people happy. But anyway, I'm happy because I love sniping. So it looks like all these guns are going to be back and be somewhat viable inside, you know, that like 50-meter range, because they're going to be one shot inside 50 meters, but not outside that. So I really like this change. I hate being balanced by flinch, because it just feels absolutely horrible to be like behind cover or something. And if you get shot, even if you're behind cover, if you get hit with like any shots at all, you can't down someone. And I know everyone's going to say, well, that's how snipers are supposed to be. They're not supposed to be used up close. I get that. But this doesn't have to be realistic. It's just supposed to be fun for people to play. And that's a really fun play style, to play aggressive sniper. And flinch just isn't a fun way to balance that, in my opinion. And they also decreased flinch by 12% on all the heavy snipers. So this would be like the HDR, the ZRG, things like that. Just a really interesting change. Vargo anti-tank rifle, rate of fire increased, base recoil decreased, damage decreased, headshot damage increased, just so it's still a one-shot headshot. And then the rest of the damage profile is nerfed as well. The rapid fire barrel, better movement speed, worst recoil, worst fire rate, 13mm 3-round fast mag, better movement speed, or better ADS speed for the reinforced stock. Still just probably not going to be a viable gun anytime soon. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but I think there's probably still just better options to use. 3-line rifle. Let's see how this thing got changed. 3-line was actually really good. It has the best bullet velocity in the game. ADS in time was buffed, so down to 506 milliseconds from 578. So that's like over 10%. Very big buff there. For the barrels, ADS speed increased, ADS speed increased, ADS speed increased. So basically they just wanted to make the ADS better for the 3-line. So I think the 3-line is going to be very good now. But we finally now have an interesting conversation and decision to make, whether or not you should be using something like a Kar98 or a 3-line, because the 3-line is going to one-shot at any distance, but it's going to have just horrible flinch. And as we saw in the past, every single person kind of went away from the high flinch snipers, but now there's a trade-off. Now these guns won't one-shot at any range. So it'll be interesting. I think most people will probably, most of my friends will switch back to these guns just because we all loved that aggressive sniping style where you could play it, you know, play cover, play up close, aggressive, and have, you know, those really fun quick scopes. Like that's just for me like the most fun play style. So it'll be really interesting to see how this works out. I'm excited to try this. Tactical rifles, the AUG from Black Ops Cold War. Ooh, the AUG got a buff. Max damage increased up to 43. Min damage increased by 2 as well. That's interesting. This could be kind of fun to use now. It's still gonna be hard to use against these like no recoil Vanguard guns, but interesting. We'll be keeping an eye on that one. For attachment changes, we got the muzzle, the MX silencer vertical recoil decreased to 4%, down from 5%. 1% change there, dramatic. G28 compensator, flinch resistance increased to 20%, nice. T1 flashlighter, ADS decreased, time to ADS decreased, okay. Muzzle brake, these really just aren't that important because we have silencers and subsonic and recoil booster. Like people aren't really going to use these. Underbarrel, the SMLE pistol grip. ADS time now decreased by 2%. That's interesting. That's going to be nice for like SMG builds. ADS movement speed increased to plus 5%. So this is going to make this attachment much better. I think this is the one that used to help with sprint to fire. And only in very rare cases was that going to be used. So now I think that's going to be a pretty viable option in a lot of cases. The M1915 Steady, this was the hip fire underbarrel. This basically used to just help hip fire. Now it helps with vertical and horizontal recoil and hip fire even more. Gun movement while firing now decreased by 2%. So I'm assuming that's like, so I've been investigating visual recoil a lot, as you guys know. And one of the things that I'm tracking is how far the reticle moves away from the center of the screen as you hold down the trigger. And I'm assuming that's what this is referring to. So like how much the gun can move away from the center of your screen is reduced by 2%. And again, that's a big thing that people don't think about that really affects recoil a lot. The skeletal, this used to only help ADS time. Now it helps your movement speed slightly and hurts your hip fire slightly. Again, that's going to make that a very popular attachment because we had no underbarrel that used to help movement speed, and now we do. So I think the skeletal is going to become a very, very popular underbarrel. The ready grip, this was the ADS strafing speed grip. Vertical recoil now decreased to 2.5%, down from 5%. So it doesn't hurt your recoil as much as it used to. Again, a nice buff to that underbarrel. Probably to balance out people not always picking these skeletal underbarrels. I don't know why my voice keeps tracking today. It's super annoying. Sometimes that happens to me in the mornings, but don't make fun of me. Rear grips, the polymer grip from Vanguard. Flinch resistance decreased to 50%, down from 95%. Flinch resistance used to be 95% on the polymer grip. Okay, news to me. I didn't know that. So that's a pretty big nerf then. Hatched grip. Vertical recoil control now increased to 2.5%. So it used to the hatched grip used to be a purely horizontal recoil attachment. Now it helps with the vertical. Flinch resistance is also added, so that's a nice little change there, and it helps horizontal recoil a little bit more. Rubber grip also gives flinch resistance now. Leather grip gives ADS movement speed and hurts your hip fire a little bit. Recoil recovery now increased to 10%. So recoil recovery, I don't know exactly what that is. I would guess like there's some parameter in the code, like when you take a shot, how fast it gets back to like where the next bullet will. See, there it happened again. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it in the video. I'm not embarrassed. It's fine. Recoil recovery, I'm assuming, is the amount of time it takes to get back to where the next bullet's gonna fire, basically. So certain guns like the bar, for example, can completely obstruct your target when they jump up in the air. If you have a faster recoil recovery, I'm assuming it comes back to that bottom point faster, so you can see your target better. But it's something that I've never really experimented with or looked into. Taped grip movement speed now increased to 5%. Sprint to fire speed increased to 2%. Taped grip movement speed now increased to 5%. Is this saying that taped grip now increases your movement speed by 5%? That's what it sounds like, right? I mean, if that's true, no one's going to pick anything but this. That can't be right. We'll have to check that out, but that can't be right. There's no way. All right, super long video. I apologize for that, but I wanted to go through everything. Like I said, I'm directly going live on Twitch right after this to get all the new weapons tested, and I'm also going to test the NZ just to make sure, because I was expecting a nerf to that. But yeah, super excited to have new content, super excited for the sniper changes, scared about the NZ apparently getting buffed, scared about the Cooper Carbine KGM40. I think we're just going to have another zero recoil meta, but we'll see how it all plays out. It can be hard to tell from the patch notes. But yeah, appreciate you all for watching. If you like my content, be sure to drop a like on the video. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about these changes. And if you want to see more of my content, of course, don't forget to subscribe. But I will see you all hopefully over on Twitch. Come over on Twitch and watch me do all the testing and help out with the testing. But yeah, appreciate you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.